and I will open the phones. You can join the conversation here toll-free if you want to join us. 877-ROME-777 is the number to dial, and I'll decode that for you. That's 877-ROME-777. My guest today is Dr. Grace Vuoto, the founder and executive director of the Edmund Burke Institute. She's been with us in the past, and of course, a very prolific writer. She's written for The Times and has been featured in a number of different publications and featured on the Drudge Report, ABC News, Real Clear Politics, and more. Just came out with a new article as well, and you can find that in The Times. I think it's coming out a little bit later this week. It's called Sliding Towards Infanticide. And, of course, if you check back to my webpage, it's relevantradio.com, keyword Drew. We're going to link over to that a little bit later in the week as soon as it hits the print. And, Doctor, good to have you back.
Well, it's such a pleasure to be on your show, and it's such an awesome privilege to be doing this series.
It really is, and I love it. For a long time, I know we met at dinner one night, and we had a great conversation, and I see the parallels between the early Christian church and the challenges they faced and those that America and the world face today. And the fact that you can so eloquently highlight those and show the parallels is important. And I want to get to that. But before we get to that, I just want to kind of lay the foundation, too. Maybe we can talk a little bit about what the president has done, but maybe more importantly, what he is now proposing as well.
Yes, well, it's not only that Obamacare, as we mentioned in the previous segment, will greatly expand the accessibility of abortion and also federal funding of abortion, but he has actively been promoting abortions abroad. So abroad, America really is the face of death for the unborn. One of the very first acts that he did when he came to power in January was he rescinded the Mexico City policy. That prevented any U.S. funds from going to fund abortions abroad. So he repealed that, meaning that taxpayer dollars given by Americans can go to non-governmental agencies abroad that perform abortions. Absolutely shocking and deplorable policy. Yeah. In addition, he's been actively caught red-handed using $23 million promoting abortion in Kenya. There's going to be a referendum there very soon on a constitution, and Kenya currently outlaws abortion, but the Obama administration has used our money to try to convince Kenyans to make abortion legal. I mean, these are just some of the many, many things that this administration is doing to make abortion accessible abroad. And, Drew, one of the questions you asked me going to the break is, I mean, why do they do this? Well, they do this because they believe that they are being virtuous, believe it or not. They think that if you give poor women the ability to have an abortion, they can possibly improve their economic standing.
You know, it's interesting here in this country, though. I mean, these guys are politicians, too, and I never forget that. There was a CNN poll that was released back, I think it was November or so. It found that 61% of Americans oppose taxpayer funding for abortion, and about 37% were supportive of it. You know, if more than 6 in 10 Americans favor such a ban, shouldn't we move to enact one? And I know Congressman Chris Smith is trying to do that right now. He introduced legislation called the No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion Act, and if passed, it would institute a permanent government-wide statutory ban on taxpayer-funded abortion. You're in D.C. What's the buzz on that? And, is there any bill that people can call their representative on?
Well, there is a bill that is currently being supported by 119 members, and it is a Protection of Life Act. So, your audience will definitely be very interested in that. I think it has really an upward slide, an upward trajectory. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be actively fighting for it. We must do so. But as long as the Democrats control the House and the Senate, it's going to be nearly impossible to get this passed.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, Grace, also, let's talk a little bit about some of the parallels that we've seen between early Christianity and what's going on in our own culture. Right now, I mean, you write in your article that we are sliding backwards towards the practice of the ancients, and you talk about how various civilizations, everything from Europe to Africa to Asia, infanticide was permitted and was even the rule rather than the exception, yet Christianity had a profound impact on changing that. How did that come about, and what are these parallels?
Yes, well, basically, as you mentioned, I write that infanticide was essentially common. Most civilizations practice the killing of babies for all kinds of reasons. That includes abortion, and that also includes babies that were very tiny and just born, and they did that by exposure, by neglect, by malnutrition, by sometimes some ritual sacrificing children to the gods. So these practices were really widespread, and it really was the Judeo-Christian tradition that over time, or Judeo-Christian ethics that over time changed the ancients' perspective on children, on the value of children. Jesus himself was really exemplary. Many of your audience will know that he said, let the children come to me, at a time when the apostles were taking the children away from him because they thought that a prophet of his stature should not be speaking to women or to children. Yet Jesus laid out a standard that he upheld with his actions, which is that all human beings, regardless of how tiny, regardless of how apparently socially insignificant they might be, that they are worthy of attention and love, and that their life is sacred. So it was really the Judeo-Christian heritage that transformed the way we look at life, no matter how tiny it is. And it did take centuries for the practice of infanticide to stop, even after it became illegal to kill children, which only happened really by about 580 A.D., where the Council of Constantinople declared that infanticide was homicide. Still, infanticide was widespread throughout the Middle Ages, and it took really centuries before those women that wanted to give up, that didn't want to keep their baby, decided that instead of killing their baby, they would actually just leave them on the front porch to a hospital or someone they thought would take care of the baby. So it took centuries to eradicate this idea that it was okay to kill children. And what we see happening in the 20th century, ever since the enactment of Roe v. Wade, now we're saying it's okay to kill babies in the womb. But my fear is that over time, once we make this more and more acceptable, once we allow the government to fund it, once we all become more complicit in it, well, what will prevent the argument from arising that if a baby that is born is weak or deformed in some way, that we shouldn't simply execute it, kill it, because it's inconvenient, just like the ancients used to do.
And, I think we're seeing that already today in a lot of respects. A lot of women are getting amniocentesis and other things. They find their child might be born with Down syndrome. They're choosing abortion. We're moving in that direction on a personal level, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it governmentally as well. What role did the Christians, I guess, play in transforming the culture? How did they do it? And what were the steps that they took? What strategies did they employ that changed, that culture of death and brought about one of life?
Well, they did it by a wide variety of strategies. One of them was they influenced the people in power. That's always key because, it is the powerful people who make the laws. So they influenced some key emperors like Constantine and Valentinian, and they influenced the church hierarchy. So the Christians essentially rose in their ability to influence the elite. They increased their ability to influence the elite. So that's one way. Another way is that they simply expanded their teachings amongst the people, and therefore they established taboos. Taboos are really important. I know I've said this on your show before, but one of the things that liberals have done is they tried to destroy every single taboo that the Western tradition previously had erected, where you make a certain act socially unacceptable. Over time, it was the Christians that dominated or defined what is taboo, what is socially acceptable, and what is socially unacceptable. And that, too, was really essential in not only transforming hearts and minds, but also transforming actions.
My guest today, Dr. Grace Vuoto. I got to take a quick break, Grace. When we come back, we will get final thoughts from her. We'll take your calls, your questions, and your comments, too, here at 877-ROAM-777. Look for her article. Check it out, okay? I'm going to link to it at relevantradio.com. And the title of the article, of course, is Sliding Towards Infanticide, a must-read. It'll give you a great perspective, not only what's happening today, but what has happened historically and how the church was effective in bringing about that civilization of life. I'm Drew Mariani, back with more right after this.